Good morning, everybody. Meteorologist Griffin Hardy here at the WDHN studios in Dothan, Alabama, still tracking what will be a historic Hurricane Michael. It's still a Category 4 storm with winds of 145 miles per hour surrounding the eye there. The sun is just now rising over top of the southern states, and we're getting visible imagery coming in. And just in the past couple of minutes, the pressure has now been reported to 931 millibars. It's still intensifying after all this time, and I do think it has a very small chance of possibly becoming a Category 5 storm before making landfall. This is going to be a storm that will be told for generations to come, because this is going to be bringing devastating impacts to the Florida Panhandle, places like Panama City and Apalachicola. Now, luckily, we are not immediately on the coastline, so the storm will have time to weaken a little bit before it actually moves inland up into southeast Alabama and southwestern Georgia. Here's the latest NEXRAD reflectivity. We've got the eye of the storm that's now about 70 miles to the southwest of Panama City, and that's still where we're likely going to run into landfall. It's starting to make that slow projected turn to the right up to the northeast, and luckily the farther east it is from Dothan, the less of the impacts that we'll likely see, because if we're in the left-hand side of the storm, which we likely will be, we'll have less in the way of the tornado threat and possibly less in the way of the flash flooding threat, because winds will be primarily out of the northeast as opposed to out of the south. Looking farther north across portions of the Wiregrass, we've got light to moderate rain expanding from the Florida-Alabama state line all the way up into parts of Pike County, all the way up to Troy and parts of Eufaula there, up into Barber County as well. The heavy rain extends all the way from the coastline well up into southeastern Alabama, and that rain is going to be continuing for the rest of the day today. Wind speeds are increasing. According to the latest NEXRAD data, we've got wind speeds on the order of about 35 miles per hour, which is just shy of tropical storm force winds. The winds, in order to be tropical storm force, have to be 39 miles per hour or greater, and I really think they're only going to keep increasing as Michael continues to move farther inland. Here's the satellite radar picture, again about 70 miles to the south-southwest of Panama City. This is going to be an amazing storm in regards to the damage that this is likely going to cause, because those winds are easily enough to knock over site-built structures with foundations. This is basically the same thing as a very powerful tornado coming ashore in portions of the Florida Panhandle, particularly near Panama City, which, by the way, has never had even a Category 4 storm make landfall in recorded history. Ever since 1851, since we've been keeping weather records, they've never had a Category 4 make landfall anywhere in the Florida Panhandle, and this could be a Category 5 before it even does so. Looking a little bit closer on the satellite and radar picture, again, you see that rain expanding up into southeastern Alabama. This rain is going to be prevailing for the rest of the day today, and with that, we'll have that threat for localized flash flooding. The winds, of course, are going to be increasing as the day goes on. By around 2:15 p.m., we're running into tropical storm force winds, likely some hurricane force wind gusts closer to the Florida-Alabama state line farther south. And the farther south you live and the closer to the coastline that you live, the stronger those wind gusts are going to be. But luckily, when the hurricane moves inland, it's a bit like taking your foot off the gas pedal. And even though the storm's still spinning, it loses its heat source that it needs as the ocean. So once it moves inland, it's going to steadily weaken. But nonetheless, winds are going to still be very powerful here later tonight and into the rest of the day today. So 7:30 p.m., here are those hurricane force wind gusts showing up in parts of Dothan and Abbeville and Ozark. This is going to be easily enough to knock down trees and power lines, so we could be without power for an extended period of time. Be prepared to be without power for a couple of days, because it's going to take a while to get the grid back in order. 10:30 p.m., those winds still at tropical storm force across most of the Wiregrass, extending over into southwestern Georgia. Then we fast forward to 2:30 a.m. Winds still kicking for the most part, but the storm itself has made its way up into south central Georgia, where it will be continuing to weaken as it moves farther to the northeast. So the rainfall amounts still on the order of about 4 to 6 inches across most of the Wiregrass, extending from the coast all the way up into southwestern Georgia. You see those rainfall amounts anywhere from close to 5 inches here in Dothan and as high as close to 7.5 inches estimated by our forecast model. We could see locally higher amounts, but the most important thing to remember, just try not to go out driving in this, because a lot of weather-related fatalities do happen on the roadways. So definitely want to just Turn around, don't drown if you do get caught in the roadways, but nonetheless, this could be a very impactful storm in the form of flash flooding, and we also have a tornado watch in effect for our counties in southwestern Georgia and southern Florida, because we'll have that threat for spin-up tornadoes as these outer feeder bands come ashore on the eastern side of the low. Now, the majority of us are going to be on the left-hand side of the circulation, where the tornado threat's not going to be as high. It's non-zero, but it's not going to be as high. The main problem we'll run into, those straight-line wind gusts and the flash flooding. So the wind speeds right now, at least according to the latest observations, are still haven't really increased all that much. The strongest winds that have been measured now are up to 20 miles per hour in Mariana, but this is just the lightest that they will be for the rest of the day today. They're going to progressively go up. Here's the Storm Prediction Center tornado probabilities for today. On the order of 5% for most of south central Georgia, extending all the way up into Macon. So this is going to be an impactful storm, not just for the coastline, but extending well up into the Carolinas as the jet stream picks up the storm and lifts it and shoots it off to the northeast up into the Carolinas. And the Storm Prediction Center's convective outlook certainly outlining that. Our counties are kind of on the fringe, so really, the spin-up tornado threat's not going to be as substantial here, but we're going to be talking about mainly the damaging wind gusts, which are certainly going to be lasting most of the night tonight, and that will be prompting a lot of power lines to go down. And with that, we'll likely have to remind you that if you're in a mobile home, you want to find your local shelter if you haven't done so already, and keep your phone charged. While you've still got power, keep charging your phone, because more than likely if we do have warnings that are going to be issued, you're not going to be able to see them on television. So tune in to the WDHN News app and the WDHN Weather app. We'll continue to provide warnings as they become available. And if you can help it, just don't drive from now until the rest of the evening, until the storm passes, because we're already starting to see some slick roadways out there. You saw that from our reporters earlier in this newscast around Highway 231. The roads were already looking pretty slick there. And if you haven't done so already, have your flashlight handy and have food and water, because we could be without power for a couple of days because of these very damaging wind gusts. So all that being said, here's your 7-day forecast. Once Michael finally exits the region by Thursday night, a cold front will come in and replace it. And with that, we'll have notably cooler temperatures. So thankfully, if we do go without power for an extended period of time, it's not going to be in the middle of the summertime where we have to worry about not having air conditioning. We're going to be a little bit cooler. Highs will be up into the upper 70s and lows will be dropping down to the mid and upper 50s. So we just got to get past this storm and the weather does look a little bit fairer. Oscar, back over to you.
All right, thanks so much, Griffin. And if you're just now tuning in, we are in